Seeing Matt Reeves answering questions at the Golden Globes, the expression on his face and his body language reminded me of Ray Fisher at Comic-Con when he lied and said he had a great experience working with Joss Whedon on Justice League. That's what the Golden Globes interviews of Matt Reeves reminded me of. A reminder, the Batman situation at DC Studios, whether it's the DCU Batman or the Batman 2 situation, is a huge mess. A reminder again that Warner Brothers, Adby, DeLuca and Zaslav don't think that two Batmen in live action is a good idea, and this is where all this indecision is coming from. A reminder that James Gunn did announce Brave and the Bold, took his slate, Gods and Monsters Part 1. So clearly Gunn was fine with two Batmen. No. All this indecision is coming from the studio. But I agree with the studio. You can't have two Batmen. But one of the things that Matt Reeves said at the Golden Globes was for Robert Pattinson, his Batman, to be part of the DCU, it has to make sense. So I ask you, my fellow Batman fans and stans, does it make sense for Robert Pattinson's Batman to be part of the DCU? Now, what you must consider, my friends, is the Batman that we saw in the first The Batman movie, that Batman, does he make sense in the DCU? And what you must conclude, whatever you think, whether you want Pattinson as part of the DCU or you don't, your answer must be no. That Batman we saw in the Batman Part 1 simply wouldn't fit in to a bottled plastic DCU franchise. I don't know how it works, because all of a sudden we're going from a fantastical DCU, which James Gunn has promised and said that's what he wants to do. How does Robert Pattinson's Batman do that? And there's been a lot of explanations where he could be a different Batman, blah, blah, blah. But that's just as dumb as having two separate Batmen. So it's a big mess. So when I asked you, does it, Matt Reeves said it has to make sense. Well, Matt, it doesn't, but they've got such a huge problem here that they may force this upon us. But there's another question I want to ask as well. Does Robert Pattinson actually want to be the DCU Batman? Because everyone's spoken about Adby, DeLuca, Gunn, Safran, Reeves. We all kind of know what they think. Well, publicly anyway. You can't really trust what these people say publicly. Anyway, as we already know, trusting modern day Hollywood only leads to heartbreak of the fans. We already know that. We cannot trust them. But someone who's really been silent on this subject is Robert Pattinson, because he's a contracted employee. So, he's not being asked this question. But if we look at the history of Robert Pattinson's acting career from, the Twilight Saga, I think it's easy to know where Robert Pattinson's going to be at, where Rob's going to be at. He started off his career as, Diggory in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which he delivered a great performance in. Didn't do that much, but he was great at what he had to do. Then he did the Twilight Saga. When he was announced to be Matt Reeves, the Batman, a lot of people, most people, the people who love him to bits now, by the way, were saying, boo, we don't want Rob Pattinson, Twilight, blah, blah, blah. He's just a pretty boy, teeny bopper actor. Embarrassing. I mean, I thought those attitudes were embarrassing. How can you judge an actor on something they did when they were really young? And how dare you judge the Twilight Saga? He got a job. He took it. It was an adaptation of a bunch of books. It made a lot of money. It made a lot of young, mostly girls, happy. So what? But it did taint his reputation within the industry. It did taint his image. And you've got to give it to Matt Reeves for having the cojones, because, he was risking his movie in a lot of ways, but it was never going to be a teeny bopper movie. It was going to be a serious movie. So Rob has worked really hard since Twilight to build himself up a serious, respectable career. Just look at the roles he's taking. Most of the roles he's taking are with auteur directors. We've got this Mickey 66 coming, or whatever it's called. Again, by a critically acclaimed director. Is his name Bonhu? I can't remember. Sorry if I got your name wrong. I didn't mean to disparage your name or get it wrong, but whatever. Basically, what I'm trying to say to you, that Rob has fixed his reputation. Not that I feel it needed fixing, but you know, the entertainment industry, whether it's in terms of fan opinion or the opinion of Hollywood, did look down at Rob for doing Twilight. It was just a job, right? He took it. He did well from it, but it did damage his reputation in Tinseltown. He did nothing wrong, by the way. The attitude towards Rob, because of the Twilight Saga, was ridiculous. But almost no one wanted Rob to play Batman and Bruce Wayne, apart from the women who are now older women who had crushes on him during the Twilight Saga. Again, we saw the trailers and we saw that this guy is going to be a great Batman and has become a great Batman. So right now, what is Rob Pattinson thinking about the DCU question? Does he think, oh, goody, I'm going to have to be in all these movies. I'm going to have to cameo in different movies. Oh, goody. I've worked hard to build up a respectable reputation doing, stuff with Christopher Nolan and all these auteurs, and now I'm going to be stuck in the DCU. Even his decision to be in a Matt Reeves Batman movie is because Matt Reeves, an auteur, was making the movie. Do you really believe if James Gunn was writing and directing a Batman movie that Rob Pattinson would have went, yes, please? No. Rob has been very careful to pick his directors carefully, and we all know this. Is he going to shoot all that hard work down in flames by signing a contract that makes him part of one franchise? It'll be very, very interesting. Publicly, as I said, we know what Matt Reeves now thinks. We don't know if that's true. He said one right thing, it has to make sense. And I believe it doesn't make sense when you look at the Batman we got in the first Batman movie. Was it back in 2020, 21, 22, whatever it was, right? That Batman doesn't really fit in to the DCU James Gunn claims he's going to make. So it doesn't make sense. But as I say, they've got this mess of a situation where they've got an established Batman. They're establishing this Batman universe with Matt Reeves. We've got the Penguin. They're thinking of ideas for a Penguin sequel series. There'll be probably lots of spin-offs on Max as well. It's clear that the only way I think that Rob Pattinson agrees to this, that everything he does is when he's working with Matt Reeves, and he's not having to work with different directors unless Matt signs off on them and they're still, going along with the same narrative. But it will be messy for Robert Pattinson. And I don't think he's going to be sitting there going, oh, goody, I can be in all these movies. I can cameo in all these DCU movies. I can use my voice on this animated stuff that James Gunn is planning. I don't believe that's the attitude of Rob Pattinson. He's a serious movie actor choosing critically acclaimed auteur directors. And I don't necessarily think, if we're looking at it from Rob's point of view, that this is something that he wants to be sucked into. He agreed to be basically in a trilogy by Matt Reeves, a critically acclaimed auteur. He did not agree. His idea wasn't to be part of the DCU. So this is becoming a very messy situation. And let's get this straight. Just because Matt Reeves said, let's see what the future holds and all of that, even though it doesn't kind of look like he's against his Batman being in the DCU, it doesn't mean it's definitely gonna happen either, although it looks like it's more likely now than it was before. But I think we all started to make the same assumption. A day later, I'm thinking, let's calm down a bit. But I'm not sure if Rob Pattinson is really going to be up for this. But as I say, and I agree with what Matt Reeves said, that it has to make sense. And to me, it doesn't make sense. Look, I'm not a stan of Matt Reeves or the Batman, but I really enjoyed the movie. I liked finding out about the Arkhams. I thought that was an amazing part of the movie. We found out that basically Arkham Asylum is named after Martha Wayne, who was once Martha Arkham's surname, family. I don't know if that's how it is in the comics, but if that was Matt's idea, it's genius, whoever's idea. But that was great to find all that out about what the Arkham name actually means. And the history behind Martha's family was interesting as well. And I love the bit in the end when Batman kind of just launches down to the street level and saves the people drowning, saves the people in the water. That he finally becomes Batman for all of us then. I think that's a wonderful moment. So I really like the Batman movie. I don't know where I'd rank it with the other Batman movies, by the way. And that's an interesting factor of the movie, that I don't know where it ranks, you know, in terms of my favourite Batman movies. That's interesting. I don't really know where to place it, because I love it. It's such a moody Batman movie. It's so moody. It's very, very interesting. I mean, he's mostly Batman for the whole movie as well. But I don't see how that version of Batman works in the DCU. And if you're honest with yourselves, you don't know how he fits into the DCU. It's neat, tidy, one Batman instead of two. But how is this gonna work? As I said yesterday, I think the Batman 2 is safely not part of the DCU and will be part of Matt Reeves' The Batman Crime Saga. What happens after that is interesting, but it's still a huge possibility that we are going to have two Batmen. But I certainly feel at this stage that Adby, DeLuca, Warner Brothers as a whole don't think two Batmen is a good idea. But the biggest part of this mess is that you need Batman front and centre, like you need Superman front and centre, like you need Wonder Woman front and centre, and a lot of these other big name characters in DC to be part of a DCU connective franchise. Batman has to be involved fully, because usually it's Superman they have trouble with integrating in these situations. Well, Superman's the first movie. It looks like James Gunn has big plans for Superman. He claims he's got big plans for Superman and Batman to be together in a positive sense in the DCU. So clearly, Gunn must know what he wants. But this is important. Everyone thinks because he's co-CEO, he gets to do whatever he wants. I don't believe that. This is the problem with this situation. As I've said before, it's not Marvel Studios. DC Studios is not an independent studio. It is just a logo. And he doesn't get all his own way. And it's Warner Bros. Because he'll make a decision, but then he has to take it to a chain, right? So there's Peter Safran, there's Adby and DeLuca, then there's Zaslav. And when he wants to do something on Max, or when they want him to do something on Max, he has to consult with, you know, the people running Max. So it's not just James Gunn makes a decision and that's it. That's what he'd have us believe, but it's simply not true, everyone, because I know how this biz works. And how I've explained it to you is actually how it works. James Gunn doesn't get to do whatever he wants, although he claims that David Zaslav has kept all his promises. And as long as he's making money and being successful for WB, that will continue. And this is why the success of Superman is very, very important. But successful or not, the Batman situation, A, is a mess. The studio don't want two Batmen. And, you know, this whole thing with Robert Pattinson, you know, and the DCU conversation started off as a bunch of rumours, a debate between the fans, and now it's reached Matt Reeves at the Golden Globes where he says, let's see where the future holds. You know, it has to make sense. But basically, by answering that way, Matt Reeves has made it more than a rumour, more than a debate. He's made it closer to becoming a reality. And Matt Reeves doesn't do a lot of talking, so don't expect him to keep on answering that question. After all, he's got work to do. I don't care if Matt Reeves takes a long time making movies. I'm fine with that. I think that WB were wrong to pressure him into a 2025 release. And Matt said, no, I'm not rushing this. It has to be perfect. It has to be good. That's Matt Reeves. Then they wanted him to release his movie in 2026. Again, he couldn't do it. He's going to do it on his schedule. And that's right. Because the release date should have been 2027 from the very beginning. So it looks like when Matt Reeves wants to get his way and digs his heels in, he gets his way. So we are in the precipice of a very interesting situation.